Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's going to say can make that any better.
Yeah, nobody. No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. I am a soccer nerd. I'm André Carlisle. I have several soccer nerds with me. It's the end of the triple header, but we are going strong. Meghan, how are you?
Italia. Da, 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 da. I'm great.
Okay. Energy right off the top. Love it. Deepti, how are you?
Is it time to talk about papaya rules yet? Go, Oscar, go.
Ooh.
I'm fantastic.
Oh, we will get there. Yeah, 3 out of 5 races. Oscar on the top step. Interesting. Kyle, how are you?
I'm good. Ebony is ducking the Alpine allegations this week. I just want to put it on record. They got no points and she's nowhere to be found.
Wow. Okay, and she can't even blame the Lord, or maybe she can blame the Lord. We're recording on Monday, so I don't know. Some people have this day off? I don't know.
Can't blame the Lord. Can't blame the Pope.
I think she's mourning the Pope.
The Pope dies and no Alpine points. Connected? Question mark, question mark.
The people need to know. Donald, how are you?
I'm fine now. This is fun.
Yep, didn't think we were gonna. If you haven't heard, the Pope died. That'd be a hilarious way if somebody just found out through this.
If we're breaking that news, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
If we just broke this news to you that way, please let us know. Reach out to us because I need to know this information. If anybody
DRS.
just found out.
DRS FC, a podcast by soccer nerds and Catholic theologians.
We're on top of all the papal news you need to know. So we'll let you know when there's a new pope. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to review the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It may sound like we're just going to talk about the Pope. We're not. We're actually going to talk about racing that happened because it did happen at the delicious Jeddah Corniche circuit. Listen to the preview to get the reference. And let me just run through a couple of the results. Oscar Piastri won the race. Max Verstappen was second. Charles Leclerc got Ferrari's first podium of the season. Lando Norris climbed his way from 10th to 4th because he crashed in qualifying, ended up being 10th. George and Kimi were 5th and 6th. Lewis Hamilton was 7th. Williams got double points. And Yuki and Pierre Gasly, in a really unfortunate situation for this podcast, they crashed on the first lap and both DNF. So that was unfortunate. But obviously the big talking point is Oscar versus Max at the first corner. Mm-hmm. Donald, you've done a pretty good job of talking about like what Max does and kind of how these things go. What was your take on what happened with this Oscar versus Max thing?
You know, I watching it again this morning, I don't think it was as clear cut of when there's a lot of times where you're like, yo, Max messed up, right? Max did this. I feel like Max thought he had the round it. And if I'm going to put myself into Max's head for just a second, I'm going to get out briefly because I don't want to be there long. I don't know that he saw Oscar. Having said that, he was very much wrong. And he could, you knew how wrong he was because he immediately jumped on the radio, was like, yo, here's what happened. And they were like, understood, Max, we'll let him know. And you knew they were just like, he's getting a penalty for that, especially considering the fact that he didn't like the way that he turned. He just kind of coasted right through that, right over that turn. Right. So I feel like, again, and to my shock, and I'm sure to all your shock, FIA was like, yeah, Max, you were wrong. And you're going to get penalized for it. So, and I think he even mentioned that it cost him the race. So I'm thankful that the FIA is starting to have a backbone in some of these circumstances. But I also go back to what I kind of have been saying this whole time is Max always finds himself in the situation. And if you always find yourself in the situation, maybe it's because you're the one being sought, right? Maybe you're the problem. And I have mentioned for years that he is putting himself in these situations and then FI is bailing him out. And I want to see his frustration because it means that the FIA is not bailing him out. And it's not going to be consistent. So we have to take these air quote wins as we get them. And I think in the case of Piastri, like I thought it was great driving by him off the start. Very rarely do we see Max get beat that bad off of the start. And I think that's probably what shocked Max is Max had a decent enough start. He was like, cool, I'm gonna take this turn. And all of a sudden, last minute, he sees a Oscar maybe out of his rear wing. And so I feel like Max is just not getting the calls like he used to. And because of such, that's why he is kind of struggling when it comes to the points here. But again, he still finished second after all that. So like it's hard to really use this to kind of set the tone for what's going to happen. Because if he's going to still cheat and still kind of break the rules and get second, then these guys need to drive faster.
These guys need to drive faster. Yeah, I honestly, my take was this was just Max doing Max shit. We've seen Max do this a bunch of times, and it's usually not, as you said, it's usually not punished. So I've got questions about the punishment, but I kind of want to know, like, Megan, what were your like thoughts on the interaction, the crash, and all of that, and especially like how Max just immediately on his radio, and then of course Oscar was on his radio, so the campaigning as they're driving all around a very dangerous circuit starts to happen. What were your thoughts when you saw that first?
We were on
lap
turn
incident?
2 by the time they started. We're like, no. See,
Right.
you got to take my side of the story. They're like, I'm like, guys, finish the lap, and then we can talk about it.
What had happened was
Right.
what was happening on that radio. Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was clearly Max's fault. We can talk in a second about if the penalty was appropriate or kind of what that means. But if you look at the video footage and you don't just take a random screenshot, Christian Horner, it's pretty clear like what he was doing, right? And you can take a screenshot and that one brief moment of time can make it appear as though that's not what he was trying to do. But everyone knows it. I'll also point out that a bunch of the other drivers, when talking to Max after the race in these like random clips we keep getting, don't say anything like they thought it was unfair. Their question has only been, how much time did you get? So I think everyone sort of feels, other than one specific team, what it was. And the hard part, I guess, I'm sorry, André, I'm not going to follow your rules. I'm going to talk a little bit about the penalties. The hard part is it's not penalized enough to stop him from doing it because it is the first lap incident. And so it's only a 5-second penalty instead of a 10-second penalty. And you either need to make it a 10-second penalty or you need to force them to give the spot back. Like you cannot do this middle of the road, and you incentivize people to take advantage of the rule. I've talked about before, while I don't like that Max does this, I understand why he feels like he can get away with it. And if the punishment is just slow enough, then you're going to take the punishment in order to do what you want to do if it's going to get you ahead, particularly with how dirty air is affecting these cars. 5 seconds is just not enough. So
Ironically, though, the funny part is when I was reading the Athletics recap of it, and one of the things they talk about is Max is the reason why they had to change the parameters where the stewards look fairly. The quote was, "The stewards look fairly dimly on the incident, explaining that Piastri's car was far enough alongside Verstappen's to earn the right to the corner, as per the driver guidelines that were updated in the wake of Verstappen incidents at the end of last year." So it's because of Max doing this over and over and over again that he now finds himself in this position, which is hilarious and ironic. If he had just given the spot back during the safety car, this would have been a non-issue. And that's the thing, is they could have easily done the give it back. If you give it back, he still would have lost. Oscar was still by far faster. But the fact that he was like, no, let's see them actually punish me. And then they do. And he's like, wait, what? I don't understand how Lawson did the same thing and got a 10-second penalty, though. As Megan was saying, like, it needs to be consistent. Like, make it a 10-second penalty or force him to give the spot back. But the 5-second doesn't make sense when another driver gets a more harsh penalty.
To answer that question, though, I think in the like explanation that the FIA gave was that because it was a turn 1, lap 1 incident, they decreased it from 10 seconds to 5. Like they said, it should be a 10-second penalty, but because they always give a little bit of leeway on that first lap, they just give him 5, which is why when Liam did the same thing several laps down the line, he got the 10-second penalty. So that's just one of the Formula One rules that, you get more lenience on the first lap because everyone's just going at the same time.
Like a foul is a foul, right? A foul 3 seconds into the game is a foul with 2 seconds left in the game, right? It's the same thing, so it should be the same penalty. But the other thing is, the reason why this is a Max Verstappen rule is because Max always does this because he knows, like, he used to have a car that if you gave him a 5-second penalty, it wouldn't matter because he's winning by 20, right? So the punishment never fit the crime because he's like, I know I can get away with it. Even if he gave the spot back, right? He could maybe try to pass him, but his mind is, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to, if I have the clean air, I can get out to a 15-second lead so that the 5 seconds don't make a difference in the end. The reason why it really hurt him is because he had to take it on the pit. As we've seen him do this late in races where he just kind of goes, I'm not pitting anymore. I'm just going to cross the finish line and go as fast as I can and see if my time can be enough to keep my place. And there needs to be a penalty that fits the crime, especially knowing what Max is going to do with that information.
Yeah, this is where I think that Red Bull and Max, the way that they've operated, really is backfiring against him now. Because I agree with everybody who said it. He should have just given the spot back. You know what's going to happen. Like, and we keep saying Max keeps doing this. I will define what this is. Is basically going into a corner. It's supposed to be like a fair, like there's the apex of the corner and a fair turn and rotation into the corner. So you basically have to be ahead at the apex and but also be able to take the corner in a fair and right way. And what Max will do, he'll zoom up along the car on the side, whether he's on the inside or the outside. He'll lay off his brakes a little bit and be like, "Oh no, I was ahead." But it's like you were never going to actually make the corner on the track, which is why and that's the gray area he likes to live in because he just gets that little nudge ahead. Christian Horner can take the screenshot of that and be like, "Oh no, look, he was ahead." But you have to replay it and be like, "Okay, but under any normal circumstances, even if there were no other cars on the track, you take that line, you're never making that corner and keeping your wheels on the track." But he does it because he wants to have the stewards make that decision. I kind of agree with you, Megan. They have said time and time again that they haven't punished this. So they've just kind of let it be what it is. And now that it's changing, he does feel a little bit aggrieved, which on one hand, it was kind of bullshit anyway. So you should have expected that this would change at some point. But I can also kind of see why he's like, "Oh, y'all aren't my friends anymore. Okay, fine." Right. Like have that kind of attitude. But it is so annoying because we've seen this too many times. And I just want to give a shout out to Oscar for doing what he did. It is really hard to beat Max off the line. This was not a long run up either to the first turn. So the fact that he beat him off the line in his reaction time, he got a great launch and he beat him to the corner. Those are all the things that Max previously had done to Lando all the time. And we kept saying, "Lando, you know what he's going to do to you." And Oscar did it to Max, and Max is mad about it.
And I just want to say, like, it's an uncomfortable feeling for me to be pro Max Verstappen. I will shout out whatever listener was like, "Y'all really hate Max" on Blue Sky this week. That was real funny. If you only knew what our group chat was named. But I will give Max one other set of small props. If you haven't seen after the race, before Max went to do his interviews, the head of the FIA, MBS, talked to Max, and it seems pretty clear based on Max's reaction after that conversation that he basically got told, "You are not allowed to complain about this." And while I find Max's complaining quite annoying, because it very much comes off of like, "Wow, you guys don't let me win anymore," it is really bad that the FIA is controlling what the drivers can say this badly. Like, if we want a sport with personality, we want them to be able to complain even when they're being ridiculous. And I think he is correct that he is being targeted on some of this stuff. Like, I think it is him that they made the swearing rule about. I think it is him that they are really gunning for. And while I don't like the way he drives, I think it's a problem. And I think this is, again, we've talked about this in previous episodes. Like, there's going to come a time where drivers are going to have to stand up against this current version of the FIA, because it's not just Max it's going to impact. The next time Lando says something, they could come up to him after a race and be like, "You are not allowed to complain about this." And that is not okay.
This is absolutely like, I think, first of all, I think the swearing rule, I hate to say it, probably was instituted in part because of Yuki. We love him, but man has a mouth. But I also think when it comes to Max, I feel like the drivers at some point has got to be like, when you have a family of siblings, right? Yo, I know this sibling's getting out of pocket, but that's not your job to chastise him. We'll whoop his ass, right? That's our job to tell him that he's messing up. Don't tell him what to say or tell him what not to say in this case. But I also think, again, when you tattle so many times, at some point, someone is going to tell you to stop tattletaling. And I think that was kind of what that conversation was about is, hey, all you do is get on here and complain about all these different rules. Like, and I get they don't have to force him to do it, but they can be like, yo, man, stop that shit. Like, all you do is complain. Ain't nobody trying to hear that again because you were wrong. And this is like every single time you get a rules impact against you, it's not because we're lashing out against you, it's because you are wrong every single time. Once you can deal with that in your brain, then we can have a conversation. But until then, it's just stop tattletelling, and really the drivers need to be like, yo, MBS, we got this. Like, we'll tell them to stop, because honestly, that's what these guys are doing.
Yeah, I think my concern is just that last year at this race, they told them to stop talking about the safety concerns, and it was MBS that told them to not talk about the safety concerns. And while that's different, this is an extremely different context. I'm not equating the two things. I just think MBS's direct involvement in talking, like, he shouldn't be talking to the drivers about this kind of stuff. It should be PR folks talking to the drivers about it. It should be rules officials. It should be stewards. It should never be the leader of an organization where the implicit threat is like, if you keep doing this, you will no longer be allowed to race with this organization. And whether that's true or not, that is how it appears, and that is not cool. And while you're 100% correct, Donald, like, boy who cries wolf, of course you're going to get your hand slapped at some point. It was just a really weird look for it to be caught on camera and for him to very clearly say, like, I don't feel like I can talk about certain things now.
Yeah, and I think that's like the bigger concern for me. It's just like you're more suppressing and limiting and trying to have this overbearing control of these drivers that should not be there. Like Carlos Sainz even said when he got penalized for being late for the national anthem in Suzuka, he was like, well, shit happens. I know I'm going to get fined for it. And I think it's just one of those where Max also had to serve the community service for swearing. And it just feels as though it's just being ticky-tacky and unnecessary with it. I understand you want to try and back off of the swearing and everything, but you're also asking athletes who are performing with literal death machines in their hands to try and contain it. And it just feels as though trying to restrict them is just going to cause more and more problems. And then you're going to turn around and be like, well, no one can say anything, and then we don't get any of the issues. It's good that the drivers can speak out, and I feel like this is more of just the FIA trying to suppress that.
I'm kind of going to shift gears a little bit, but on another note regarding this incident, I have seen a lot of people talk about the actual design of this first turn and how it could be, it's not great, and how it just leads to these incidents, and that I don't remember what's happened in previous years, but it's like the way that they've designed the first turn almost like creates these problems. And so maybe it's unavoidable, because actually the same, I think it was still on the first lap, Kimi Antonelli and Charles Leclerc got into a similar sort of situation. The only difference was that Kimi backed off. Like, they both were heading to the apex at the same time. Kimi just backed off and Leclerc stayed ahead of him. But it could happen a lot more. And I think, they've done some repaving, making of some tracks. Maybe that is something to look at for the future, is just to change this particular turn if it's not necessarily one of the better ones.
And just to explain what Deepti means by that, not to put words in her mouth, but just to explain kind of what the concern is, it's that because it is still pavement, while there is a penalty that can be assessed or you have to give back a place, there's still actual space for you to make those choices. Whereas if it was gravel, or if there was a wall there, and a wall would be quite dangerous, so I'm not advocating for a wall, but if there was something there to physically prevent you from doing it, then drivers wouldn't be trying to find the extra edge to do it. Mm-hmm. The thing I've seen proposed is if you put gravel there, it would naturally slow drivers down, so they would not want to touch the gravel, and they would not make those choices at that corner.
Yeah, I think we talked about in the preview that this is just a really dangerous track anyway, and we saw in the very first lap Tsunoda and Gasly get into it, which was the only safety car of the race, but it does maintain a 100% safety car record in this race. It hasn't been going all that long, as we said in the preview, since 2021, but every single time this race has happened, there has been a safety car, at least one. So yeah, and of course we saw the crash from Lando in qualifying. So yeah, quite a few instances. In fact, Lance Strulovich, apologies, probably should have crashed. He went sliding around, spinning in one of the, was it one of the practice sessions or was it qualifying? I don't remember.
I believe it was FP3, but I might be mistaken.
Okay.
Also,
yeah,
Lance Stroll did that. Lance Strolovich had nothing to do with it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, this is an interesting track, and I do appreciate you pointing that out, Deepti, as well, and Meghan. Like, track design is really important. We kind of saw that a lot, and that became part of the debate about Max's driving style and how he kind of tries to use the rule book in his favor. If you take the gravel off the way, he won't be able to just snake around off the track, stay ahead of somebody. I want to talk about two things, and then we'll kind of move on to other things in the race, though. One of the things that was brought up is the penalty itself. And if it was fair or what could be done. I want to have that conversation because I think, Donald, you said a couple things about the penalty, and I have my own thoughts about that, but want to hear from everybody else. And Deepti, I want you to talk about Oscar's start. You're a big Oscar Piastri fan.
Mm-hmm.
This had to be like incredible for you to watch. And in fact, let's start there because I said it earlier, but I just want to make sure it sinks in for everybody, right? Like, Max Verstappen is legendary at starts, starting the race, whether he's first or second. If he's on the front row, he usually gets to that first turn first. He gets ahead and he's gone. He and Oscar both know the necessity of clean air, what it can do for you, what it can do for your tires, what can it do for your car. They know that. This was a battle to get clean air because Oscar said clean air is king, and Oscar won.
Yeah. It's interesting. The start time is not necessarily, which car is the fastest, which can like rev up the first. It's reaction time, and it's the driver getting the car into a proper position by turn one, like you said. And like you said, we know Max is one of the best, if not the best, at doing so. And the fact, even in qualifying, that's why it's so important to get P1, and he beat Oscar by, what was it, like 1/1000th of a second. So that was massive. But the fact, I just gonna repeat what you said. The fact that Oscar was able to jump off the line like that and do it so perfectly is incredible. And I think compared to his counterpart, who has had rough starts, we know Lando's starts are not the best at all. Seeing this part of Oscar and seeing that maybe it's something that he is better at than Lando, or it's something that maybe he's worked on, or something that he could, like, there's always room for improvement, but already like looking better at, like, that is something for the team to see. That is something for all the other drivers to notice as well. Like, you can just see the improvement from Oscar from last year to this year, and already him having won 3 out of the 5 races. It should have been 4 out of the 5. I think it's becoming more and more clear who is the better driver, and maybe Oscar has like the better what am I trying to say? He's better at certain things that will help him in like the long run than Lando is. Some people may argue that Lando is still a better driver overall, maybe a little bit more technical and like has that, but I think you can see now Oscar really growing into his own the way he drives and the little techniques and like things that you see him do. You can see how much he's improved and how much further he can actually go. Like, it's only his second year and he's already done so much. And so yeah. It's like,
I was gonna say, like, I don't think McLaren expected him to jump as much as he has. Like, beating Max Verstappen to a corner as your second is like a thing that I don't think Lando still has yet to do, and he had plenty of opportunity to do it last year. And we've seen Oscar just be great at overtakes. I mean, he had an absolute, we'll talk about it, but he had an absolutely outrageous one on Lewis Hamilton, which hurt my heart, but it was beautiful the way that he did it. Like, he is a just outrageous talent in the car. All right, let's go back to the penalty. Kyle, 5 seconds for Max Verstappen. Obviously, I think we've talked about it as well. Usually, if he would have been in one of the older Red Bull cars with a car advantage, it really would have meant nothing because they even told him, like, okay, Max, head down, give it all you got. They're trying to build up that lead so that the 5 second penalty wouldn't hurt him, but they weren't able to do that because the car doesn't have that type of advantage anymore. So do you think 5 seconds was right? Would you like to see 10? Would you like to see something else?
Deepti brought up a good point. Like, they're more lenient with the lap 1, turn 1. So I understand the 5 second. I would have, like Donald said, though, a foul is a foul. So 10 seconds would have been the better, but I at least understand where Deepti's coming from. He got a penalty, which I thought was fair. He had plenty of time to give a position back. He chose not to. He had to face the consequences.
Fair enough. Deepti, what do you think about the penalty?
Yeah, no, I agree with Kyle, what he just said. And I think they interviewed Christian Horner afterwards. And Christian Horner was like, yeah, we purposely, like, we decided not to give the position back because, number one, we would be in Oscar's dirty air. And number two, George was right behind. And, like, George has done pretty well in the Mercedes. The Mercedes is probably a bit faster than the Red Bull anyway. And so instead of being in that position between two cars that could very well beat Max in the Red Bull, they were like, we'll just take the penalty. And I think they knew that at most it would be 5 seconds because it was a turn 1 incident. And so, strategically, anyone in that position would do the same thing. I think it's just on the FIA to put harsher punishments and force him to give back the position, I think would have been what I would have liked to see, or at least, 10-second penalty.
While I understand the spirit of the first lap rule, I just think it allows drivers to know that they can take advantage of that rule. The whole point of this sport is figuring out where you can get even like 1/100th of a second advantage from the rules. And so I just am not really a big believer in the first turn rule in general, the first lap rule in general. So I think it should have been 10 seconds or he should have had to give it back. And as it's written now, they don't have to.
Well, since we're already known as the Max Verstappen hating ass podcast,
Can I be a Lando?
Because
Lando
it was Max
hating ass
Verstappen. Well, we'll get to Lando. I'll go ahead and say, in my opinion, since Max has done this, it should have been a 37-place grid penalty. There you go. That's where I'm at. Get him all the way out of here.
Why did you stop there?
What was that one last year? Wasn't there like a 50 grid penalty last year for Lance or something?
60.
No, it was
Liam Lawson, right when he took over for Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was. I just assumed it was Stroll.
Because I was like, how does that even work? How do you enforce that? It doesn't make any sense. It was unnecessary, but it was great. All right. We did a lot of chatting about that. That was an important thing. Really one of the main thing that ended up, some people say it decided the race. I don't necessarily know if it decided the race. I honestly do think I'm kind of with you, Kyle. If Oscar gets ahead in that clean air early, if Max gives that position back, I think he goes all the way. Deepti. Yes.
Yeah. I actually was just looking up to see what the time difference between Oscar and Max was because it was a couple seconds, right? But I think besides the penalty and whatever, what could have helped Max was the pit stop, because McLaren kind of fucked up Oscar's pit stop. It was a 3.4 second, which is quite slow. But Max, when he had to, after holding for 5 seconds, his was 3.3. So he could have very easily made up like a second or even like over a second on that. But he didn't. And so I think that also played a role in like how much he could make up on Oscar.
Yeah, and I do hope they won't learn the lesson because they're Red Bull, but I would love for them to learn the lesson that, okay, give the place back, keep fighting. They could have been in a much better position to win this race, whereas the 5-second penalty put them behind Oscar, and there was just no way. Once he had all the clean air and he had the ability to stop, and they both had to stop for fresh tires, you're not going to beat that McLaren given the way that it works with its tires in hot conditions. So, all right. That out of the way, let's move on to the other things to talk about because there are plenty to talk about. All right, y'all. Yeah, I'm scared to bring this up because I know what's going to happen.
Can I do it?
It's also me. I'm the problem. Yes, Megan, go ahead, please.
Guys, if you're not a social media person, you should go look at some recent social media posts and see what Lando is wearing, because we've solved the xDawg problem. Mm-hmm. And the answer is he's a Manchester United supporter. We all should have known. We should have felt the vibes emanating. We should have known. The culture is the problem. Jim Ratcliffe. I don't even know how to say his name correctly because he's a rat. He is infecting not only the Manchester United football teams, both on the men's and women's side. He's now infecting papaya. And I, for one, am excited to hear that the Manchester United curse continues, because as a Lando xDawg hater, that man looked so sad after that race. He knows that he had the advantage all of last year. He knows that he had the advantage in knowing this car inside and out, and he is watching it slip out of his hands to the most chill Australian of all time. The chillest person ever does not react to winning at all on the radio, right? His race engineer looks more excited than him 90% of the time. And Lando is watching this just chill Australian take it from his hands. And so Lando took 3 tries and almost 3 laps to pass Lewis, who sounds more depressed about his chances in a car and his personal performance. I personally don't know that he's blaming Ferrari. Like, based on what I heard, it sounded like he more seems like it's his fault, which I don't agree with per se, but like he seems to think that's what it is. And Lando couldn't get past him for 3 laps in a car that did not look like it was really good. That looked like Charles was pushing it to the limit. Meanwhile, Oscar just like totally blows past him without even having DRS.
I'm just gonna say
why Lando couldn't get past him. Lando was being stupid, and I'm sorry, I don't mean that like I try to just not call people straight up dumb. This was dumb. I know you can't do this. I don't race cars. I haven't grown up karting or anything like that. I am far away from that world. I am sitting in an office with a microphone looking at a computer. This is my life. I know these things. If you that straight start finish straight is a DRS zone. The detection zone is at that corner. If you pass a car and get ahead of them before that detection zone, they're going to get DRS and then just pass you. He did that twice before he realized, oh, that's right. I got to use the DRS and then I pass him. Lando, what are you doing?
And they completely killed that. He wasn't going to win, but he could have maybe podium if he didn't waste all that time doing a DRS tango with Lewis Hamilton. And you would think after the first time, you would realize, how did he? Oh, the DR. Oh, okay. I get it. I understand it now. And then he just did the same thing twice. It's like, what are you doing? But I'm just saying, Oscar Piastri commented on Virgil van Dijk's new contract extension. I'm not saying correlation, but the Man United supporting driver is cracking under pressure, while the one that's supporting the Liverpool captain seems to be thriving. I'm just saying.
Also, that means Lewis is going to have the craziest comeback ever as an Arsenal supporter and then still not win the championship. I'm making fun of myself, Arsenal supporters. Don't you worry. I'm one of you.
But also, if Lando did that once, you would think his engineer would be like, okay, no, do this instead. And like, hopefully the engineer did tell him that, and Lando was just dumb enough to do it again and then realize, or maybe his engineer thought, oh, he'll figure it out because doing it once was silly, but doing it twice, what's the thing? Do it once, make a fool out of me, or you, what, I don't know the saying, but whatever it is, that's what
fool me once, fool me twice.
Fool me king,
I don't know
fool
the
the
last one, but yeah, that
is what that is. This also happened, I don't know, I feel like Lando has regressed, and we've seen this a lot, and maybe it's a mental thing because he's seeing how well Oscar's doing. Maybe it's like a lot of pressure because now they're like, oh, he should be like, he is the favorite to win the championship after how he came back last season. But there was that other race when he took like so many tries to get past George, and he like didn't even end up getting past George, and George was just on like tires that was at the pork rind tires, those ones, like he couldn't get past George on those. And so I don't know what's happening with Lando. I feel like he's still getting points, he still like has enough podiums, he has a win, but it still seems like he's underperforming.
I can tell you what's wrong with him. Megan, you said that you're what did you say, you're a Lando xDawg hater. I don't know how you can hate his xDawg. He has the xDawg of a dry turkey sandwich. Like, it's not there. It's not present.
We keep adding ones on the chart that just go lower and lower.
They were animals, and now they're now we're sandwiches.
There's a scene in the seminal movie Shark Tank with Will Smith where he is ranking things, and he said, "There's whale poop. Then there's me. No, you're even farther than whale poop." That's how far down Lando Norris is on the xDawg. He's below whale poop. Okay. And I don't know. I will say, like, ironically, in all of this, George Russell is just chilling, guys. He's in third in the championship, and he's just hanging around.
George and Kimmy both.
We say this every episode, right? That like it takes us an hour to even think about George Russell, and he's just chilling in third, just like chilling. But like I think Lando's problem, like you mentioned, Andre, like that is a simple thing to remember. Hey, if you touch fire, you get burned. Don't touch fire again unless you want to get burned. He touches fire twice, and then the third time is like, hey, why am I getting burned every time that I touch this fire? And so when you see the DRS zone and you see the detection zone right there, and you speed past your guy, and then go, oh yeah, I shouldn't do that again. I should not do that the next time. Or pass him so quickly and get past him quicker and be a second ahead of them so that when you hit that detection zone, they ain't got it, right? And then you're off and running. But it felt like that is a simple thing to remember. That is a simple thing for your team to communicate to you. Like, hey, next time, don't do that, right? Like the fact that they let him do that twice, that is on the team as well. And again, this goes to the whole thing of I'm sure they were probably like, yeah, man, you can get him. You can still get him. Like, don't worry about it. Like, you're the man. You're number one. Papaya rules. You could go, right? And they need an adult. But if you're going to be the top dog, as McLaren is finding themselves to be so far in this season, you need an adult in the room. You need a get back coach. You need an adult. Those cannot be the same person, right? And right now, the only adult in the room is basically telling Lando, "Yeah, man, you got this. Go on past the guy. Like, oh no, try again. You'll be fine. You'll be fine this time. No, try a third time." They need an actual adult to be like, "Yo, man, this is why you're messing up. This is if you're gonna be, top dog on this team, you got to do this." Meanwhile, Oscar is racing like Drago, right? I will pass you. Like he is just flying around these corners. He does not make mistakes, and that's why he's leading the championship right now.
And that's what I was going to say. There is the actual adult. It's his teammate. That is the adult, the cool, calm, collected, does not get rattled, just goes about his business. Although it's ironic because Lando's like, yeah, if Max didn't get the 5-second penalty, I don't think Oscar would have caught him, even though all the signs point to, yes, he would have. And then later on with Lando saying, yeah, I have the pace. So it's like, okay, if you think you have pace, then why don't you think the superior teammate has pace? So there is an adult at McLaren. It's just Oscar Piastri is that adult.
We strive to be correct on DRSFC, and so I'm going to correct myself. The actual standings are Oscar in first with 99, Lando in second with 89, Max Verstappen in third with 87, and George Russell in fourth with 73. In case you were wondering, since we also give you Pope news, 3-1 odds on the Filipino Cardinal going for Pope. So we will see if the Filipino Cardinal has xDawg better than Lando to get that next job. I will point out, Verstappen in 87, Lando in 89 means that Lando may not even stay second after the next race, particularly because Max likes that next course, which we'll talk about on the preview.
I'm just fascinated to find out, because we will find out soon if the next Pope is an F1 fan, because if so, they will be in place by Miami. I promise you that. This will be like exchanging Liam Lawson for Yuki Tsunoda. Like, this will happen quickly. If my man's like, yo, I got a race on Sunday, I don't know what y'all talk about. I'm trying to get the service in and then get to this race.
I'm just saying, the Pope was sick earlier this year, so they probably had a contingency plan ready to go, like Red Bull did.
The second leading candidate is Italian. I need to know if he's a Charles Leclerc fan or a Hamilton fan. I need to know. These are the important questions many people are coming to this podcast to have answered. Will the next Pope be an F1 fan?
Will he be an F1 fan? What's the Pope's xDawg? I didn't know that was on the Pope application, but apparently it is. So we're finding out so many things. No, I'm the thing with Lando that is frustrating. Yeah, I agree with you, Deepti. It does feel like he's regressed, and I do think that it feels like he's regressed because Oscar has improved so much, and now he's pushing a lot. And I do think, like Donald, to your point, I agree. Like, the team needs to do something and kind of step in and help him. But Lando also sounds so fragile in interviews and beating himself up so much that they're probably scared to be like, okay, what's the right approach? Because if you put a lot of pressure on him, is he going to crack? Like, I know they have good relationships. Him and Zach Brown have been like, they've known each other. He's been a fan of Lando for years, even well before his F1 career. So I would hope that given that, they would have the ability to say like, okay, we need you to like lock it in. Maybe don't tell everybody that you're going through all these mental issues, like maybe pull it back a little bit and be focused. But we've seen it. In the last race, he was locking up while trying to pass people. He was making a bunch of mistakes. We already talked about the DRS issue with Lewis. In fact, the second time he tried to pass Lewis at that corner was hilarious because Lewis baited him like he was a rookie. Lewis just let off the brakes early and was like, "Oh, there you go. Okay, now I have DRS." It was like it was like a playground game. It was so funny, and Lando just walked right into it. It's so silly, but it's like I kind of agree with you, Kyle. Like if he makes that pass on Lewis the first time around like he should have, he probably catches Leclerc for third because the car is fast enough, as we know. He went to 10th to 4th with really no problem except for the Lewis thing. He could have tracked him down, but because he needed 3 laps to figure that out, that's being behind a car that you're faster than for 3 laps. That time adds up. And I really think he could have at least got within the DRS range of Charles, and then he maybe could have gotten the pass along, or Charles would have just baited him like Lewis did and kept the DRS and then gone straight to the finish line. Who knows? But he would have been a lot closer than he was.
I'll also say, like, he screwed up going into the pits too. He had the he screwed up with the tires, and then it looked like to me he came very close to getting a penalty there. And so, you know, that's like a mental thing, right? I mean, it is possible that his tires influence, but that is 100% a mental thing to let yourself lock up like that, and then to be so frustrated that you locked up that you almost went over the line exiting.
Yeah, it's all these little errors that just keep popping up in his game that makes it feel like what's really going on with you? Are you just feeling a ton of pressure? Do you just need like a break? Did coming in as the favorite, was that just something you weren't prepared for? Because he told us at the end of last year that, oh, I learned so much, like I'm going to be ready for this in 2025, and we're 5 races in, and there's a long list of mistakes that he has made, including crashing in qualifying. And it's just like, what is going on with you? When things looked okay, not perfect, but okay in Australia with him winning there, since it's been downhill. And that's been really weird to watch. I do want to shift to Mercedes because we've talked a bit about George Russell and how well he's done this year. We know last year that Mercedes had a pretty big problem with warm weather and, well, really hot weather, not just warm weather, hot weather, keeping its tires. It looks like that problem hasn't been fixed. George said his tires were toast. He didn't even know if he was going to make it to the end of the race. And they told him, yeah, you're fine. But he was losing so much lap time. It's just that the difference between like the top 4 and everybody else was like a lot of time. I think the top 4 within like 10 seconds, and everybody else was nearly 30 seconds away at the closest, like 5th place. So he didn't have a ton to worry about from that standpoint. But I thought Mercedes had figured something out, but maybe they haven't, given this race that it was a night race, but it was still really hot, and that car chewed up its tires. What are we kind of thinking about George and Kimi's performance? Kimi's been great, but if the car can't do, it's like if George is struggling with the car, you expect Kimi to struggle with the car too.
I mean, it seems like they fixed the like one lap. Like the qualifying pace is really, really good. Like George was up there with Oscar and Max in qualifying, but it seems as though maybe it's just the tire. They have not figured out how to get the tires to last long enough. And George is someone that is relatively good at managing his tires. That's something that he does really, really well. So the fact that he feels as though he is eating through them and they can't last is a bit concerning. And again, is it because of the hot weather? Possibly. I think we'll get a better idea once we get to Europe and Canada. They'll give us a better idea, but it just feels as though while they have,
or Miami next.
I mean, Miami's gonna be hot. I think we're gonna have that same. It's probably gonna be hot. But I think the issue is just they've improved the qualifying pace, but they haven't figured out the race pace and like way to keep the tires cool. And that probably is gonna continue unless they make an upgrade.
I also think it's interesting, right? Because it's more so in the case of George Russell. I think P1 and P2, FP1 and FP2 were the first 2 sessions this entire season that George Russell did not finish in the top 5 of times. And so it no matter what the car is doing in the race, he's still getting these results. And again, we keep talking, you know, in these post games, and even the pundits are sitting there like, yeah, let's talk about this. And then like 30 minutes later, like, and George Russell finished 3rd. George Russell finished 4th, right? So he's just quietly getting his points. And I think that is buying them the time that they need to really deal with some of the issues that they are having, because those issues are going if they don't fix them now, they will eventually catch up to him, and he will stop getting top 5 finishes, and that will drastically hurt their positioning.
Yeah, I think both George and Kimi have been consistently, top, definitely scoring points, usually top 5, 6. And they're Mercedes is second in constructors right now behind McLaren. And I think everyone expected McLaren to be first, to probably be repeat constructors championship champions. I don't know if we really expected Mercedes to be up there already. So seeing that, and I think, as time moves forward, if they can at least consistently be ahead of the rest of the teams, once they make upgrades, once they kind of figure it out, I don't know if they will necessarily contend for the number 1 spot. I feel like McLaren kind of has that locked in, but I think they could definitely still keep second. I want to talk like the tire thing. And I really, really do want to do a whole episode on tire talk because I feel like every time we get on here, we have more to say about tires. The whole thing about keeping the tires cool, like each team gets the same tires. So when we say that, the tires are the problem, it's not the tires actually themselves. Like the tires are the same, the material's the same. Pirelli gives the teams the tires. It's how the car manages to like cool them, how the driver can manage them and not eat them up as they're driving, and just making sure they're like, driving as smooth as possible and not making unnecessary like breaks or going over gravel or whatever it is, going over the curbs too much and stuff, just eating up the tires themselves. A lot of it has to do with how the track is paved and whether that degrades the tires more. Um, I need to dive more into it and see what mechanics of the car really factor into how much the tires are eaten up. If it's like the suspension, if it's um, the cooling system, if it's brakes, whatever it is, it's probably a combination of everything. But yeah, so I just want to like clarify that when we say the tires are the issue, it's not that the teams have different tires. It's just how the car manages to like deal with them.
Yeah, I think is as riveting as a tire talk episode sounds. I do think it's really important. Like it is a massively important part of F1, and we've seen it time and time again. Like keeping your tires, and especially explaining like a good window, like a good operating window, which is not too hot, not too cold. You always hear like Kimi in his practice session when he crashed last year. He was on cold tires and he's pushing too hard. He was off the track into the wall. Like you can just kind of see when the tires are in different temperatures, and depending that can be affected by the atmosphere, can be affected by the track, can be affected by the air of the car in front. That's why Oscar always says clean air is king. Like there are so many things that impacts them, and how cars are able to keep them in a decent operating window to maybe give them the continuous pace or the fastest pace that they can is kind of a kind of trick of engineering, and something that McLaren is really good at. So yeah, I'm here for that episode. I'll do a lot of listening because I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I am here for that episode. All right, before we jump into a couple of race delights and get into our accountability hour where we review our our predictions, which come with some celebration but also some shame, perhaps. I do want to get to Meghan and Kyle. Please state your cases. Tsunoda and Gasly collided on the first lap as well. I'm looking at the rundown. Meghan has one view of this, and Kyle has a separate view of this. This seemed to be in opposition. So, Kyle, I want you to go first. What were your thoughts on this incident between Yuki Tsunoda and our beloved Pierre Gasly?
While I completely understand that the stewards called it a racing incident, Gasly and Tsunoda both said that was fair. Ebony was trying to say that it was Yuki's fault, and she even said, I will not be on this episode, but I want it to be known that it is Yuki's fault, and that is a lie. Pierre was not giving Yuki enough space. Yuki could not do anything. Pierre had 2 wheels off of the track. It was, if we had to give blame, it is Pierre Gasly's fault. Ebony is wrong, and she cannot go in here and try and explain her case with passion like she did last week.
All right, so
I
you're
feel
an
like I'm
Alpine
about
hater.
to be
All right.
in a Hamilton rap battle right now. No, I think it's a racing incident because Kyle himself even admitted that this whole argument is premised on Ebony trying to blame someone else. So I think it's a racing incident. I know his wheels did technically go off track, but I don't think that Yuki exactly played by the rules either. I think both drivers were pretty quick to admit that like they both did things wrong, and that's kind of the textbook of a racing incident is like it was just rubbing and racing, and that's what happened. I will say, if there's anybody that Yuki was not going to cuss out on the radio, it was Pierre. So I was at least happy that, like, if something terrible had to happen, at least it was, you know, friendship FC could be, as sometimes I call Arsenal women, friendship FC could be in effect. So they couldn't be too mad at each other because they do secretly love each other deeply.
So that's my question. I do wonder what would have happened if it was two drivers who didn't like each other. That's what I'm interested in, because they both handled it
Squabble
really
up.
well with a good respect for one another. But I am like, I don't know. I'm kind of on like, not because I'm trying to like speak for Ebony, but I kind of feel like Yuki, you didn't have to get that close to Pierre. You could have still made that turn. There was plenty of the left side of the track was open. Like, you could still go there. So I kind of feel like this is a little bit more, maybe 52-48, on Yuki instead of Pierre. That's where I'm at.
51% Pierre. Sticking
What's
by
the
it.
like? What's the bros before hoes, but for drivers who are friends before blaming each other?
We might need to take suggestions from listeners on that one.
As like a funny side note, I can't remember the context, but very recently Pierre and Yuki were being interviewed, or Pierre was being interviewed and talking about Yuki, and he implied that like Yuki and him were gonna have the same last name. He was like, either Yuki will be Yuki Gasly or I'll be Pierre Tsunoda. And of course the fangirls were like, yes, our years of shipping have finally worked. We're going to have a gay F1 couple, which is not what I think they were trying to say. But I think it is pretty funny when this happened, like right after that interview. I wish I remembered the context. I'm sorry, guys. My brain is melting.
Andre, to answer your question of why Yuki had to take that line, it's like from Friday when they asked Debo, "Yo, Debo, don't you have $200?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I want to spend Red's money." Right? He didn't have to take that turn, but he wanted it, so he tried for it. And I don't know that it was either's fault. I feel like, as some of you said, is kind of, both teams tried to ball too hard, and they forgot the ball. But it was interesting that we had just had the incident with Oscar and Max, and as I'm watching the race, I'm like, I know what's about to happen here. I've seen this script too many times. Incident in the first turn, everyone kind of emerged unscathed, and then all of a sudden in the back half of the pack, two were going to collide and going to send this whole race into a tailspin. And that's exactly what happened. And it was clear that they both were trying to create an angle so that they can, because they were in a portion of the race where if they do that right, they not only pass the other, but they have a shot at passing two more people in the next chicane. So I'm not faulting either person. Ebony is going to go ride for her squad. But Pierre had some fault. Yuki has some fault, and they both suffered because they both are out of the race.
All right, fair enough. Okay, let's take a quick break. Let's do some delightful bits from the race, and then we'll get into accountability hour, which won't be an hour because we've already gone about an hour. All right, let's. We usually do this before we get into these, but we've had some really good discussions, so I wanted to just do this right off the top. And really, it's usually talking about radio calls, but we expanded it this week because there were a lot more funny things that happened beyond radio calls. But there is a radio call that I do want to talk about, and it is when Charles Leclerc's race engineer Brian told him that it was a nice overtake. And Charles Leclerc says very deadpan on the radio. He responds back, "Thank you, Brian." It was so weird. I want to know yes, when there's microphones in his face and the race engineer's face, they love each other, have a great working relationship. I want the tea. There's something there. There's a reason why, like the "must be the water" or words of wisdom thing, like that happened earlier this season too. Like there's just a weird relationship between those two, and I want to see it instead of like what happens, because it's not how they portray it in interviews is not how it comes across on team radio. And I want the real. I want the real, because that was a very funny reaction.
I will say what makes it a slight bit funnier is like the actual line that Brian says is like, "Nice overtake, Charles," and then it sounded to me like Charles was just repeating back the same sentence structure of like, "Thank you, Brian." Like it just comes off very formal and funny, like André said. Yeah, I would kill for like. I understand that we do have Drive to Survive, but I would kill for a Hard Knocks Italia version of like, let me just sit inside of a live feed of the Ferrari post race and like the Ferrari discussion, because I want to know, are they friends? Are they weird? What's going on?
Another radio call. I feel like we've talked about it a little bit, but we need to talk more about Spicy Alex. Alex Albon has been sassy, sassy, sassy. Every single race, there's at least one radio call where maybe he's always been like this and now they're just like showing it more because for the drama and for the like entertainment. But my goodness, this time it was something about like his engineer saying his brakes were overheating, and he's just like, do you not see that there's a car right behind me? Like, am I the only one who can see this? And he's talking about like how dry there, and okay. Like, I don't know where that came from or why that had anything to do with anything, but we've seen like Lewis, of course, get flack for talking to his engineer with a tone, quote unquote. And I think even like, was it Isaac who also somebody was like, oh, he's got a tone. No one's really said anything about Alex except like, ooh, we like new spicy Alex. Because he's generally thought of as like one of the nicest and like calm, cool people on the grid. But something's gotten into him this season.
I agree. Something's gotten into him, but in this instance, he was 100% right. They were telling him to back off from the car in front of him because his brakes were overheating. He was like, I have a car behind me. If I back off, they pass me. What are you talking about? Like, I understand his frustration in this instance, but yeah, it has been a random thing all of a sudden where we're getting very spicy Alex Albon radio calls, and I'm here for it.
So not a radio call, but another thing that's like just quite fun is that Bortoleto passed Alonso, which if you're not aware, Alonso is his manager. And so you could hear Alonso immediately on. He started doing the Max thing. He was like, he can't do that. That was illegal. That was the worst driving I've seen in a long time. Blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, Oscar made a joke about it to Alonso and was like, oh, are you gonna like let him on the plane? You guys are sharing a plane ride home. And Alonso was like, oh, he can get on the plane, but he might not have dinner. Similar plane content. Alex Albon finished the race not knowing that Max had not won. He thought Max had won, and he was getting interviewed after and was like, oh yeah, I'm sharing a plane home with Max. And the reporter was like, oh, that's gonna be like a real quiet plane ride. He's gonna have a bad time. And Alex was like, why? Had no idea. And then the reporter like explained what happened, and Alex was like, well, I have headphones. Just an incredible response.
That is amazing. And I also want to mention like the Bortoleto versus Alonso thing was hilarious because I don't know if Bortoleto saw him, but he almost plowed straight into Alonso. And I think that's what like Alonso's reactions are the only reason that wasn't an absolute like wreck that took them both out. And I also think like on the radio, you hear a good blah kind of sound. Like you hear this really funny that in a lot of radio calls will say that when there's like a close call. It was very funny to hear that again. And the fact that they have that like management like relationship is very funny as well. So that was amazing. Real quick, before we get to accountability hour, can we talk about Lance Stroll and what he said? So Lance Stroll, if you didn't know, Lance Stroll has Strulovich, or Stroll, I guess we're saying now. He's Stroll until he's Strulovich. Is this correct, Kyle? I'm getting it correct.
Yes, when he screws up, it's Lance Stroll.
Kyle,
when he does well, it's Lance Strollovich.
We need a ruling by the official Stroll historian. Kyle.
Yeah. Correct. Like I said, it is Lance Stroll that screwed up and is causing this interview. Lance Strollovich was the one getting points in his first two races.
There it is. Okay, so Strulovich, when he's doing like looking not like himself, the himself that we don't know, that we're not familiar with, when he's actually driving well, he's Strulovich. When every time else he's Lance Stroll. That makes sense. Yeah, he was out in Q1 again, which gave him the dubious record of being the driver with the most Q1 exits of all time. He passed Kevin Magnussen for that. By the way, Magnussen is 32 years old and not in F1 anymore, and Stroll is 26. So yeah, And then Lance Stroll said that if he had been driving, if one of the McLaren drivers had been driving Saubers their entire careers, they'd have this record too. Lance.
He didn't drive a
What?
Sauber, and one
did
of the
not.
Ferrari drivers did, and he doesn't
never
have that
has.
problem, and he got them to point. God, I was so mad.
I when I saw this, I did not crash out, but I was like, as I said in the preview, I think I said this a couple times a year. You are driving an Aston Martin. You are not driving a pedicab. You are not driving a rickshaw. You are driving an Aston Martin. Aston Martin, by the time you spell Aston Martin, you should be out of Q1. Like, there is no excuse for Lance Stroll to be sitting here talk about, oh, well, if they had worse cars, you are in a better car than a Sauber. You should not be getting out in Q1. Maybe, just maybe, it's the driver that has been driving these Aston Martins the whole time. Like, get the fuck out of here with this, man. Like, this man needs to chill out and understand that he is this close to being a putt-putt golf operator, handing out golf balls to people and their little sticks to make them choose their golf clubs before they get on the course. That is how terrible he is in an Aston Martin. Can I say this real quick? He is in an Aston Martin. Give me an Aston Martin. I promise you, I could get out of Q1. That's the point of an Aston Martin.
I will say, if you want some good Stroll content for the weekend, friend of the pod,
wants that?
Douglas Reyes-Cerrone, took the spinning video and put it to the classic millennial anthem of Tokyo Drift. So please go check it out. We love you, Doug. Thank you for dealing with our shenanigans.
Tokyo Drift is what Lance Stroll does in an Aston Martin every single week.
He just wants to dance.
Why is this man?
He's just sliding.
Why is
and
this man
spinning.
here?
He just wants to dance.
I want to propose, can we have the Checo Perez Memorial Gloomy Boy of the Day presented by Lance Stroll or sponsored by Lance Stroll? I think at this point, Lance Stroll just needs to sponsor that award.
It does need to
No,
be
we need this-
sponsored because he has the money to do it. He absolutely.
Yes. No, we can't sully the award by making it based on.
I'm just saying,
Lance
you know
Stroll.
how halftime shows have a sponsor, like the Visa halftime show, or the NBA, like Kia halftime show. We just have
should
the
just
Lance Stroll presenting.
I got it. I'm here for this. It will be sponsored by the F1 career of Lance Stroll. That's what it'll be.
See, y'all are sullying the name of this award that we created like 6 months ago. No, here's what we do. To make a compromise, I say presented by Aston Martin, because that gives it the elegance, but you know exactly who you're talking about.
Nah, Lance has to have his name. If Checo has his name attached to the award, Lance needs to have his name.
I feel like it's enhancing the award by having very noteworthy people attached to it.
You know
I
what?
just
Let's
cannot.
Checo might be back in the league next year.
Good.
Even if you jump through hoops, there's no hoops I can jump through to like justify where he even came up with Sauber. Like, why was Sauber in his mouth? Sauber's just, that gift Sauber's like,
Why
now
am I
I'm
in
in it.
Sauber is that
was
meme
weird.
of 50 Cent saying, fuck Diddy, fuck whatever. Fuck me? That's Sauber right now.
Yeah, it was so weird because he's never driven for Sauber. He's driven for Williams and Racing Point, and then which his daddy turned into Aston Martin. That's it. Like, I don't understand why this happened, why Sauber caught a stray. And also, this rich kid, like his daddy built a massive factory, a massive wind tunnel, hired like thousands of people. He just shit on all of them saying they're producing a Sauber. Like, I'd be like, yo, get out of here with that nonsense. What is wrong with you? Just because you're mad.
I would like to point out for the record that Nico Hulkenberg finished ahead of Lance Stroll. So maybe he should think about driving a Sauber, because maybe he'll get out of Q1.
That is perfect. Okay, let's get into our predictions and then get out of here. Let's see. Okay, our podium predictions. I'm going to run through these real quick, and we're also going to have some new rules for our constructors scrap and our most points and least points, but then we'll do our Zoomy and Gloomy Boys because we have quite a few things to talk about there. Okay, podium predictions. Kyle, you said Leclerc, Piastri, Russell. Kind of right. Two of the three. Not bad. Not the right order, but fine. Donald, you had Piastri, Leclerc, and Hamilton. Hamilton, no, but you actually did nail it with Piastri and Leclerc being on the podium, but Leclerc was third. I had George Russell, Oscar Piastri, and Kimi Antonelli. I was feeling Mercedes. I believed in them, and they let me down.
I did
But
that
at least I
last
had
week,
Oscar.
and it let me down. So I'm sorry I didn't
Yeah.
relay that to you.
Yeah, it's fine, and thank you. We'll talk about it later. Deepti, you had Oscar, you had Lando, you had George. Not bad,
I got one
not
of
bad.
them.
You did get one of
The
them, and as
important
we said,
one.
Lando probably should have been third. So
Yeah.
constructor scrap. We always predict who has the most, the constructor that's going to win the most points and the least points. Deepti made a good point that we probably shouldn't, speaking of Sauber, allow people to choose Sauber because the car is just not good. They're always at the back. It's not great. So we're going to do that in the future. We're not going to have people be able to select Sauber as the least points anymore. But conversely, because McLaren's doing so well and has two drivers that are always a threat for the podium, we're not going to allow people to select McLaren either. If that changes throughout the season, we'll adjust it, but we're going to change that when we do our next preview for Miami. So be on the lookout for that. Having said that, though, if you implement these rules and discard McLaren, you know who has the most points? Ferrari. So Donald, Kyle,
Got him.
you both said Ferrari would get the most points. I said Mercedes because I was feeling Mercedes. I'm looking silly. Deepti said McLaren, which is the right answer since we have not instituted these rules, but still not bad. Least points, Kyle, you said Aston Martin. You were right. They had 0. Donald said Sauber. You were right. They had 0. I said Haas. I was right. They had 0. Deepti, you said Racing Bulls.
I was close.
They got 1
had
point.
1.
1 point. Isaac Hadjar got 1 point. He was actually kept from more by a fun little the tag team of Williams, Sainz and Albon. Was kind of hilarious, keeping him back there in 10th.
He sounded so sad about it. I don't know if y'all have seen the video. He's just like, so he was like, if they weren't teammates, I would have done it. I don't know. He's a sweet boy. He's a sweet boy. That's
He
all
is
I
a
gotta
sweet
say.
boy.
I
Hadjar's
love him,
grown on me
Ivana.
quite a bit. He is great. And he's a really good driver, it seems, as well. Like I think he's had a quiet, low key, like really good start to his career. All right, Zoomy and Gloomy boys, let's do it. Kyle, you predicted Esteban Ocon, Zoomy, Alex Albon, Gloomy. What are your actual Zoomy and Gloomy boys after the race?
I was very, very wrong. That's all I got to say with that. But I will give Isaac Hadjar, the Zoomy boy. He did really well. He got into points. He was unfairly bullied by the Williams team. Just was very, very strong. And he could have gotten higher, again, if he was not caught by Carlos Sainz doing the DRS tango with his own teammate, which is a very good strategy. So I'll give him Zoomy boy. Gloomy boy, I'm going Lewis Hamilton. He was just so far off of everyone else. That pass that Oscar did on him was beautiful, but also heart-wrenching. It just feels like he was just nowhere close. And other than annoying Lando Norris, which, again, a rookie mistake on Lando's part, just feel like Lewis did not have a good time.
Yeah, Lewis said he needs a brain transplant to understand the car. My guy. Deepti, your prediction for Zoomy and Gloomy before the race was Ollie, Zoomy boy. So a lot of Haas love. Didn't pan out that way. Fernando Alonso, Gloomy boy. Your actual Zoomy and Gloomy after the race.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ollie, he kind of had just had a meh race. It wasn't like horrible, but it wasn't great. Fernando could have worked, but actually, who I went with for Zoomy boy, I went with Carlos. I think he had an overall better weekend than he's had in the last few races. He made it to Q3. He, I think, qualified P6, got into the points. We had double Williams points. So trending upwards for Carlos. So he's my Zoomy boy. And then we've talked much about it, but my Gloomy boy is going to be Yuki Tsunoda for obvious reasons. We were excited. We still are excited to see how far he can go in this Red Bull. And we unfortunately did not get to see anything past one turn this time. So on to Miami for Yuki.
Yeah, fair enough. Donald, before the race, you had Leclerc and Bortoleto. Leclerc Zoomy, Bortoleto Gloomy. Cristobal?
I was right. I was dead on balls accurate. That was awesome. Leclerc gets the podium. Actually, I mean, all weekend he was at or near the top of every session. Bortoleto, on the other hand, was literally at the bottom of every session except for 2. P2, where he did not even compete, or he didn't even put out a car, and I believe P3, where he was 19th. He was 18th in the race, but that was dead last because he started out dead last, and because of Yuki and Gasly crashing, they retire. He did not gain a place in the entire race. I feel bad for him because he was the best on the F2 circuit last year, and we kind of predicted that this was going to be a struggle for him being in such a bad car and trying to live up to whatever hype that was surrounding him as arguably the best rookie. But man, I didn't think it'd be this bad.
Yeah, I'm real sad. I wish he was in a better car because we really don't have any idea of his actual talent level. And to make things worse, apparently they're having real problems with dirty air, which they're always going to have because they're sober. All right. I predicted Kimmy to be a zoomy boy. I predicted Liam Lawson to be my gloomy boy. I was half right. Liam Lawson was bad. Got another penalty. I guess he wasn't bad. He actually qualified ahead of Hadjar, but Hadjar passed him on track. Actually got a point, whereas Liam Lawson didn't. And Lawson also picked up yet another penalty. It was a 10-second penalty for basically doing the exact same thing that Max Verstappen did. And except he got penalized. Well, they both got penalized, but he got a 10-second penalty, which is him racking up penalties in these races. Not good. Not good, buddy. But Donald, Muzumi boy, I'm with you. Charles Leclerc, he was great in this race. He made those medium tires last way longer than anybody else. He was battling. He was leading the race for multiple laps because he just kept on those things. And I was really, really, really impressed with that tire management that I did not know that car was capable of. So yeah, it seems like he may have figured out a little something. Their qualifying pace isn't quite there yet, but if they figure out the qualifying pace, Leclerc could really be a threat for podiums from now on. And I'm hoping they can figure that out ahead of Miami. Meghan, you weren't with us on the preview, so we're just gonna have to. We won't be able to shame or celebrate you. We're just gonna ask for your
I have a Pope
actual.
fact. I have a Pope fact.
More Pope
it's an
facts?
F1 related
Okay.
Pope fact.
Pope fact.
Let's do it.
He met Antonio Giovinazzi in 2017. Antonio Giovinazzi gave the Pope a helmet. Also, the Pope Francis, rest in peace, my friend, a member of the Ferrari supporters group. So we were right. This man did care. He took one last car ride yesterday. He saw Charles Leclerc get on that podium. He shamed the hell out of JD Vance, and he said, "My work is done."
Happy Easter.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that Pope fact. And now we'll ask you for your zoomy and gloomy boy.
Sorry, just a one-track mind over here.
No, it was
My
important
zoomy boy,
information.
I understand this is copying, but obviously I'm going to pick Charles Leclerc. Why wouldn't I pick Charles Leclerc? Homie showed why whenever people say that it's just the Ferrari being good. No, he's a very good driver. And he is a tire whisperer. And maybe hates his engineer. We'll never know. My gloomy boy would be Isaac, just because I think he is trying so hard. I think he's doing a really good job. While it's awesome that he got 1 point, he, I think, deserved more than 1 point, although I do love my Williams boys. And I think he is kind of the first person that seems to have come through the Red Bull firm without seeming too scarred. Like, he still has emotions. He's not a robot. And so I just want the best for him. And I hope Helmut Marko stays far away.
Yeah, I mean, he's only a couple races in. They got plenty of time to break him, and honestly, his radio engineer said something like "watch your tone," and I was like, he wasn't even wilding out. Like he was just reporting that water was splashing in his face. Can you just
Which
like,
is perfectly fine to throw a concern out there, like, "Hey, water's splashing my face. We pay millions of dollars. Why is this happening?"
Like also, like as we said when we were in our little chat, we're like, "Yo, man, like." I'm getting waterboarded out here. I'm trying to see the road, and I can't do that when water's flying in my eyeballs, man. Like, I'm not. And the thing is, he's like, you better check your tone. Like, boy, check your tone. Check this water system while you're at it.
Yeah, that was a weird response because I was like, is there a radio message we didn't hear? Because it didn't sound like he was wilding. Like, if that was happening to you just driving down the road, you'd be pissed off about it.
Yeah.
So it was really, really weird. Okay. That's it. That's our review. We're done. There is a 2-week break until we get to Miami. So we will figure out any sort of other content that we're going to put out. So keep on our socials. We're on Blue Sky. We kind of have a Twitter/X account. We don't really use it because fuck that. We're on Instagram as well. So follow us there and keep subscribing to the podcast because we'll have plenty other episodes to come out. We need a review. Drive to Survive. Now that we have a break and people have seen it, so we might need to talk about that. We might need to talk about tires. Deepti, let's go. Let's talk about tires at some point. We got a lot of things coming up, so subscribe. But for now, for Kyle, for Meghan, for Donald and Deepti, I'm André. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom,
Vroom,
vroom.
vroom.
Vroom, vroom. I'm also not Catholic. I feel like I should point this out.